Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Well Beyond the Arc, episode number 10. I'm Manoli,
And I'm Montana.
and we'll be talking, as always, NBA basketball for the next 60 minutes or so. Our show today is going to be heavily focused on the Golden State Warriors and the NBA Finals that have just finished up last Thursday, a couple days after our last episode. And we'll take a look back at the 2021-22 season. And I'm ready for an exciting show, Montana. A couple of housekeeping notes. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Yankee and Brit sports group here on YouTube. You get all the different notifications when our next Well Beyond the Arc episode airs, in addition to a bunch of other different shows on the sports group. You want to make sure you check those out. Some good stuff featuring MMA, NFL, and pretty soon there's going to be a college football podcast here on our group. So be sure to check that out. And also, don't forget to check us out if you're not watching us on YouTube. Listen to us on Spotify. All episodes on the Yankee and Brit Sports Group Network, including our Well Beyond the Arc podcast episodes, are on Spotify as well. So be sure to check us out there. So, Montana, oh, bring it. Smoke's already coming at us. I told you Golden State in 6. And guys, we are live. Keep the comments coming. They're cracking us up as we're going. We love it. Keep them coming. And let's go. So, Montana, I think as most of us predicted, even though I turned and became heel and my WWE prediction going from a game 6-7, I think most of us saw Golden State winning on last Thursday, beating up on the Celtics, and they did just that. What was your thoughts on watching that game, and just what are your thoughts on that game overall?
I mean, we just saw a team get completely outmatched. I don't think the Celtics really had. I never had them winning the series. I will admit, I did have them performing a little bit better in Game 6. They really did not have the best performance, but I think that we saw a team that was completely outmatched and that made it way farther than a lot of people would have guessed. Back in January, February, I don't think anyone would have called them making the finals even. So impressive that they made it where they made it to, but I mean they were just outmatched, and the Warriors just pound for pound are the better team. Some people hate seeing them winning. I don't hate it as much as I did in like 2017, 18, because it's different now because they had a couple of years where they didn't win it. So I don't look at it as much like the same that I did before when they were just winning it or making the finals every year. But it still probably rubs a lot of fans the wrong way. Maybe it should rub me the wrong way since I'm a Lakers fan, but I really don't. I don't have any problem with that. I never saw the Lakers really competing with that Warriors team, especially once we got to midseason. They kind of pulled away from the pack a little bit. But it was a fun series to watch. I think the Celtics will be back. I do really think the Celtics will make their way back eventually, but I think for now they just have maybe a few more pieces that they need, or just take the pieces you have now and just grow them and help them build, because they have a relatively young team. They do have some vet talent, but a lot of their stars are still pretty young. So they've got a bright future for sure. And the Warriors just got it done, and it was cool to see Clay back out there get another championship. That's what I was really happy about, was seeing him come back from that injury and get that chip like that. So
Yeah.
exciting series. The playoffs were great, and looking forward to the next season now.
Yeah, I think I've been watching NBA for I'm gonna date myself 30 plus years here. And when Boston got out to a 14-2 lead in the beginning, I'm like, there's no way they're gonna hold it. They're
No.
coming out smoking, TD Garden's going crazy, but I think everyone knew that Golden State was gonna come back, and that was nothing to them. And they did just that. I mean, they showed their championship pedigree, they showed their championship experience in not freaking out, just weathering the storm. And then they turned around and went on their own 35-8 run that absolutely demoralized and crushed the Celtics. I mean, this game was lost late in the first quarter, going into the second quarter, and Boston was trailing and chasing all the way back from there. Steph Curry had a great game. We both said that he had to have a good game 6 in order to clinch the Finals MVP, which he deservingly took home. 6 of 11 from downtown. Boston was they were giving the ball more to Golden State than they were even attempting shots. They had 22 turnovers in the game. Stat I read, and I like throwing out stats here. Celtics are 1-8 in these 2022 playoffs when they have 16 or more turnovers. And that's basically, it was very obvious in this series that they weren't going to get it done every time they started throwing the ball away. When they took care of the ball, they had a chance. But the Warriors just made more plays. They played quick, but not fast necessarily. They played under control. It looked like they had the Celtics on a string. Jason Tatum just had a terrible game. Bad time for a terrible game. 6 of 18 for 13 points. The one guy that showed up for Boston was Jaylen Brown. He had 34 points and was the only one that was keeping the Celtics in it. And here's a dubious stat. And Derek White, if you're listening to the podcast, you may want to put us on mute right now. You played 15 minutes, but you were a minus 26 on the court. Not a great night for Derek White, but yeah, give credit to the Warriors. The champs four times since 2015, deservedly so, and it's very obvious. Very obvious why if you were watching the game and the series. I mean, Andrew Wiggins broke out, especially in these finals. Everyone knows who Andrew Wiggins is. Jordan Poole, solid. I mean, he made a couple half-court shots to beat the quarter buzzer here. But you mentioned Klay Thompson. Very happy for Klay being out for 2 years and then coming back, playing at a high level. And getting that chip. And Draymond Green, yes, we are talking about Draymond Green again, and we'll get to him more in a minute as we have the last couple of weeks, but give him credit too. He came out and had a solid game, 12 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. His presence was felt on both ends of the floor. He had a couple, I think he had a couple of threes. I know he had at least one, but he got it done. But, the shining star of all those Warrior stars was Steph Curry, finals MVP. And a friend of mine sent me a meme today about Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr's got 9. Well, once they give the rings out here in the fall, he'll have 9 rings. So Steve Kerr's won 9 out of the last 27 NBA championships as a player, as a coach. So just crazy.
No, I agree. I think that he by far is going to go down as one of the best coaches in history. I mean, he's already up there with the success he's had. And I wouldn't be shocked if we see the Warriors remaining at least in the talk for being a team that could make the championship for the next few seasons. Who knows what the offseason will bring? I already saw a lot of reports that they're trying to keep a lot of their younger core and they're kind of focusing in on that. Now, they're not going to get rid of Clay or Steph. They're obviously,
No.
they're there. Draymond Green, I don't know for sure. I think if they can keep him, they will, but I don't think that's a priority for them. He had a pretty decent game 6, I will say. He did show up and have one of his better games of the series in game 6. But other than that, I mean, he really underwhelming, kind of doing more talking than anything else now, which it's entertaining, I will admit, but you definitely
Yeah, it
need
is.
more than just the talk when you're trying to, go. If they're trying to go back to back, which of course they are, who doesn't want to go back to back when they win? So I would say this Warriors team is going to be around for a minute and they're going to be a force. And I know people were, super glad when, of course, the injuries were awful, but when the Raptors beat them, people were celebrating the Warriors like that's done. Their reign is over. I don't think that's true. I don't think for sure that they'll make the final. I don't have I'm not going to call it this early, but even, I don't have them making it for sure to the finals next season, but I definitely see them making to the conference finals by far again, if not making it right back to the finals again. So super, super impressive team and a dynasty. I mean, they've won 4 championships and they really just had 1 to 2 seasons where they fell off, and that's just with all the injuries and everything, and then they bounced right back. So
Yeah.
This Warriors team is great, and Steve Kerr, they all fully deserve this championship. And this is the only Warriors championship in all the championships they've been winning that I can look at and actually be pretty happy for them. Before it was a little annoying, but now it's like, they made it back after falling. Like they're the real deal. They made it back.
They earned this one. They certainly earned this one.
Absolutely.
More ways than one. And I completely agree. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. I think, if you're a different team and you're looking to win a championship right now, you're going to have a really tough time beating them next year. This year was the chance, I think, for a lot of teams, and we'll get into that in a second too. They have a great young core. And what do we think was going to happen with Wiggins? I'll tell you what I think happens with Wiggins. I think they're going to resign him. And the Warriors have already shown, the Warriors ownership has already shown that they're not afraid to outspend everybody. luxury tax or no luxury tax. I mean, I think they're going to be the first NBA team to have a salary cap number of $11 billion for the season. Obviously, that's a made up number, but I mean, they don't care. Luxury tax hasn't phased them. So I think they're going to re-sign Wiggins. I think they're going to re-sign Jordan Poole. Those are the first two priorities, I believe, for the Warriors. And don't forget the number 2 pick of last year's, or I think the 2020, yeah, last year, well, 2020 NBA draft, James Wiseman, the young big man out of Memphis, didn't even play this year. And that dude's uber talented. They were just resting him and stashing him with a knee injury. I think he's going to play next year, and he's just going to add even more to that team. They got a couple other young guys. Jonathan Kuminga, athletic as hell, can jump out of the gym. He's only going to continue to improve, and I think he's only 19 or 20 years old, excuse me. They're really high on Moses Moody, 19, 20, or another guy that's 19 or 20 years old. Wiggins, 27. Poole, I think, is maybe I think 22, something like that. And they have all these young guys, and Curry, Clay, and yeah, I think Draymond Green's the most expendable, but I don't think he's going anywhere either. They have the perfect mix of stars and young guys. I think the only loss they'll see is Andre Iguodala possibly retiring at age 38, but don't be surprised if you see him turn around and become an assistant on Steve Kerr's bench. Kevon Looney came up big with everybody knows who he is now too, with all those huge rebound games. I don't know if they'll re-sign him. They possibly will with Wiseman waiting in the wings, but that might be another guy that can go. But yeah, for the most part, I fully expect this team to be intact. Maybe an Otto Porter Jr. leaves and they sign another vet on a minimum. But yeah, I think this Warriors team's here to stay for a while, guys. And this offseason is going to be very, very interesting to see how teams, restack their teams and rebuild their rosters to try to take on Golden State. So we'll see. Well, Steph Curry finally got that elusive NBA Finals MVP. We said that he had a big game in Game 6, and he did with 34 points. He averaged over 30 points for the season. Did it in all sorts of ways, not just shooting from the outside and just being that greatest all-time shooter that everyone knows that he is, but the underrated part of his game with his handles and getting to the basket, all contributing to all that scoring, and played some hella defense as well. Montana, a lot of chatter about Steph Curry among the all-time greats. Where do you have Steph Curry in NBA history among the greats? Whether it's a ranking or how is he going to go down if his career ended today? Where would you have him?
I mean, he by far, in my opinion, and I kind of thought this before just because everything he's accomplished up until this, but I mean, I would put him top 15 right now without a problem at all time. I would really put him up there. I mean, he's tied LeBron with championships. He's tied Shaq. I mean, not that it's just championships that matter, but these guys that are thought of as, top 10, top 5 players, he's tied with them in chips. And personally, I mean, he has that 3-point he has that 3-point record and he's not even done yet. I mean, he's just going to keep on climbing until he decides to be done, which I was talking to one of my buddies about this, and I don't see him playing that many more seasons. I really don't. I see him sticking with the Warriors. I think he signed an extension or something recent. I know he still has a decent amount on his contract, but I think once that contract is up, if they can win 1 or 2 more championships in between his contract, he may call it a career. And I don't see them winning 2 more with him, but I definitely see them winning 1 more and him getting 5 rings. So I definitely have him top 15. I don't have him top 10 quite yet, but I definitely have him close. He's in my top 15, and when it's all said and done, I think he definitely will be top 10. I may never view him as a top 5 all-time great, but top 10 without a doubt. He is an amazing player, and he really changed the game. His style of play has just gone everywhere. We see it in high school. We see it in college. I mean, the way he plays the game is spreading. And of course, the 3-point line has been there far before he was playing, but he made the 3-point line a target spot. And now the game can be ran through the 3-point line. I mean, a lot of teams will just stick, I've seen it even in high school. High school ball is starting to be more 3-point line based as well. So he changed the game. He's an icon. He's a 4-time champion. He's the leader in three-pointers made. There's not much more. He has nothing left to prove. I put him up there with a player like LeBron, who I don't think has anything left. They have nothing left to prove. They've accomplished these great things, and they're legends. So I would put him top 15 for sure. I'm not going to slip him in the top 10, but I do think by the time he retires, he'll be in my top 10 for sure. Because again, I see him getting another championship. I see him adding more accolades on, and he's really done a lot for the league and just overall. So for basketball, so I definitely have him sitting, top 15, closer to top 10. But when it's all said and done, there's no way he's not going to be a top 10 player of all time.
Yeah, there's some comments been coming through about Steph changing the game. Yeah, I couldn't agree 100%, or I couldn't agree more. He is definitely the undisputed greatest shooter of all time. And not just because of his accuracy and the number of three pointers he's made, and he's just going to keep adding to that career list that he's top of. It's the degree of difficulty on some of these shots, and the fact that everyone in the stands, on the court, on TV knows he's going to take some of these shots and still gets them off and still makes them. I mean, that's just amazing. Even I remember when he was first coming up and Clay was first drafted to the Warriors, and it was the birth of the Splash Brothers. Those guys, and especially Steph Curry, made shooting cool. Something fundamental he made cool. And everybody wanted to be like Steph Curry. Everybody wanted to shoot like him. It's just crazy to see how far he's come over his career so far. Two-time MVP, NBA all-time leader in three-point field goals made, as you mentioned. He's the Warriors' all-time leading scorer, and he's past Wilt Chamberlain. Now, granted, Wilt's played for a couple different teams, but not to take anything away from Steph Curry. He's 34 years old. His game is one that requires him literally to run around like a chicken with his head cut off. And you got to be in a phenomenal shape like that. I mean, guys like Reggie Miller and Rip Hamilton played a long time doing that, having that sort of game as far as, running around part and coming off screens and things of that nature. I think Steph's got at least a couple more good years in him. I wouldn't be surprised if he played another 3-4 years. I think he's got at least another couple at a high level. I have him top 15 today. I don't have him like you. I don't have him in the top 10. The reason being is I don't know who to move out of that top 10 and put Curry in ahead of. Just some of the names I have in my top 10 in no particular order. Jordan, LeBron, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kobe, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Magic, and Bird are my top, at least 8. Maybe not in that order, but those are 8. And then there's a log jam with Tim Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Oscar Robertson, Shaq, Dirk, Steph's in there, and then Jerry West. Top 15 for sure. Who knows? Maybe he wins another championship or two. Maybe he plays another 4 or 5 years, compiles some stats. Who knows? Maybe he even wins another MVP. I don't know if he'll do it at this age, but I think he's top 15, maybe even as high as top 12. That's where I have him.
And yeah, that's about where he'd be on my list too. Like you said, it's hard to move someone out of that top 10. It's also, even just that top 10, it's a hard list to compile together because there's just so many different eras and styles of play. And it's sometimes difficult to make a top 10, all time, just because you have to look at all these different factors. But yeah, definitely top 15. And I'm with you on him being closer to 10. He'd be like my 11 or my 12. But I think, again, when he retires, when it's all said and done, I think he definitely will be top 10. I think if he can win one more championship, which I definitely think the Warriors have at least one more in them, without a doubt, if not more. I mean, I think that they're really building up a core and a group of guys that they're hoping to keep around for if and when Steph. They want a young core, to Steph, mentoring that team, being able to play with Clay and Draymond and Steph. And then once they're all done, you have, and again, the NBA it's all business, and we don't see players stick with teams as long as we used to for the most part. So will those guys still be there when Curry retires? Not all of them, but some of them I think definitely will be. I see Jordan Poole being there a good chunk of the rest of his career. I really do. I think he is going to be a player that they are going to give a larger role going forward, especially since Curry and Clay and Draymond aren't going to be there forever. Draymond, in my opinion, already has one foot out of the door a little bit, just with his play. He's not really contributing that much. Clay, I was really underwhelmed. I know that he came back from a big injury, and just seeing him on that floor was great. And he had some nice shots, but he was extremely underwhelming in these playoffs. And I don't want to say Curry definitely did not carry, but it was Curry, and then it was the young guys, and then Clay and Draymond were kind of just there. And Draymond more than Clay, because Clay did contribute a lot more than Draymond did. But I think that this Warriors team is starting to look to becoming younger. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how they
It
became
should.
successful before.
Yeah,
Steph, Draymond,
absolutely.
and Clay were all young guys when they got. So I think it's not bad to just like look towards youth and try to yes, Curry will be there until he doesn't want to be there. Curry's going to retire a Warrior. I don't think he's going to go anywhere else. Clay and Draymond, though, especially Draymond, I think will end up moving somewhat soon. Clay maybe not, but I see Draymond moving pretty quickly because again, the trolling is funny and it's entertaining, and he's definitely probably a leader in that locker room, but they also need to fill that position with someone that might be a little more consistent and do a little bit more than just talk. So who knows what that's going to look like? Wiseman, took that. I don't know Wiseman too much. All I know is I saw him try to recreate the Kobe picture with the statue or with the trophy. So I saw him try to recreate
that was his contribution to the 21-22 Warriors.
Yeah, and again, I mean,
Yeah.
it's awesome. He's a young guy. He still has hopefully
Good for him.
left. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's in to be injured but still become an NBA champion. Like that's great, and I think that he might be one of the scariest pieces for that team once he's healthy. Because in college he was just insane. Obviously, he had a short-lived college career, but just he is a generational talent. I really think he is. I think he's going to come out once he's healthy and just blow everybody away. So the Warriors are smart in keeping him and trying to get him to rehab with them and everything. So I think we'll see him out on the court sooner than later as well. And I think that, like I said, I definitely think that the Warriors are trying to look younger now and move towards youth, which is smart. Curry's going to be Curry until he retires, most likely. I'm not entirely sure that Draymond has always been all over the place, but it's just even more now. And then Clay, I don't know. I think next season will kind of tell if Clay really is a big piece of this team anymore. I don't think we got to see enough of Clay to see if he's still a huge part of this team. Obviously, he helped them win and he hit some good shots, but I wouldn't be shocked if we see Clay and Draymond exit far before Curry does.
Yeah. Klay Thompson came out and said that, he only wants to play for Steve Kerr. And I think that, who knows? Well, we'll see what happens. I don't know if I see Klay Thompson leaving. I don't know if Draymond Green would leave, but I think Klay and Draymond will at least play out their contracts and they won't be moved. And to be fair to Klay, came off being out for 2 years. And for being out for 2 years, I think he did pretty well. A lot of times with, some of these, serious injuries, when you're talking about an ACL or even an Achilles, a lot of times they say, well, look at the guy 2 years removed from his injury. So next year will be, pretty interesting to see how Klay comes back and performs. Klay to the Bucks. Jay, I don't think that's going to happen, buddy, but that'd be something to see. What the Warriors are doing with their team is they're loading them up, like we said before, a great perfect mix of young guys and vets. What they're doing is building depth, because the key to this team, and we've seen it from the Warriors the last couple of years, is injuries. Can they stay healthy? And they've proven this year that if they can stay healthy, they'll be competitive. But now they have depth. And what do they have? Their old slogan, strength in numbers. Which leads me to our next topic. Not only are the Warriors champions of the NBA, but they are champions of the Twitterverse and champions of trolling. I don't know if you've seen this, Montana. Even moments after the NBA championship, the NBA finals and concluded, Draymond Green went right back to his podcast and started interviewing some of his Warriors teammates and started trolling Boston and started trolling all the haters. Even Klay Thompson in the podium post game brought up Jaren Jackson Jr., the Grizzlies, kind of mocking the strength in numbers slogan. And Klay said, "Yo, yeah, we remember all that. That bum from Memphis, those aren't exact words, but he did call Jaren Jackson Jr. a bum. Um, you know, you know, he was so pissed about that and all that other stuff. Steph Curry, doing the night towards the end of the game. His wife Aisha, tweeting something about what's on the menu tonight, ending it with Curry goat. But Draymond Green, holy crap, did he bring the heat? And he brought it, and he continues to bring it over the last few days since the Warriors have won. I mean, I have a whole list of these tweets that he's come out with, but Montana, of all the trolling, and I'm not big on trolling, but you gotta admit, this is pretty funny stuff. What was your favorite of all the, I guess we'll call them trolling, but kind of the jabs the Warriors were hitting back at their haters?
So there's so many of them because this team, I
Right?
think they definitely deserve to talk that talk because everybody said that they were done. Everybody was counting them out. Everybody was like, they're not going to win another championship. That's the end of everything, which personally, I kind of thought that as well because, I know Kevin Durant was not the main guy of that team, but when he left and Thompson was down and then Curry went down with an injury the next season, I was like, this is potentially going to be the end of that dynasty, but they picked it back up right where they left off. And I'd have to say I really like I don't remember which, it was in one interview because they asked, I don't remember, it was a panel of those of sportscasters, I don't remember who it was, but they predicted that the Warriors would win 0 championships with
Oh yeah,
Curry.
they
And
went with, I think it was
Curry did
Perkin, the ESPN guys. I don't remember.
yeah, and then Curry did that with the four.
Someone went like this. Yeah,
Yeah,
0.
and then Curry, kind of talked, and Curry doesn't really talk a lot of trash, honestly, at least to the media. He's never really done that. He's kind of like, yes, he's talked to the media and he's said things before, but he was really, really, really talking the whole playoffs. He was doing the night thing in the other rounds too. Like he's been talking the entire, and I love that. I really like seeing that. A player that talented also talking like that is so much fun because he can back it up. But no, when he did, I don't know if it was it might have been in the post game interview just right after the finals. He did that and then held up 4. So that has to be my favorite because, I think Kendrick Perkins was one of the people that said he wouldn't win another one. And I don't really trust any of those people to give, great takes. I will say shout out to
Especially Kendrick Perkins.
especially him. I will say shout out to Stephen A. Smith because he called them winning it from the beginning of the season, and a lot of people know. I don't know if anyone. I mean, the fans of the team wanted them to win, and some people probably thought they might come back, but we didn't know what they were going to be until mid-season. I don't think so. I would say either the 4 and then that tweet on Father's Day from Draymond Green was also pretty funny.
Yes.
And he's been he's been on Twitter ever since the fight. I'm convinced that man's just staying up on Twitter, just waiting for the next thing to say because he's been posting on Twitter constantly. He just keeps on, which is fine. That's the thing that he can do really well. But I would say that the Curry getting in on the trolling was what I liked the most, and especially when he did the 0 with the 4. That was nice. I like that. So that had to be one of my favorite ones, but there's just so many to choose from because they are just on their troll tour. Like it is the Warriors, summer troll tour now, which is going to annoy the hell out of some people, but I'm here for it, honestly.
You know what? I don't have a problem with it because they haven't said anything. They just sat back and took all the shots. They sat back and listened and they kept all the receipts, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you can walk the walk, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Right. Hell yeah, they earned it, Ghost. Hell yeah, they did. There's a number of them. You know what? You mentioned Steph Curry being among your favorite. I can honestly say a couple of days ago was the first time in my life I went on Draymond Green's Twitter page, and man, did that not disappoint. Holy man. Let's start with, the shirts they were handing out in Boston that had all of the championship banners, that it had a blank one. And it was basically that blank one for championship banner 18, which we both know by now it hasn't happened. And Draymond Green filling it in with a pen saying, nope, not this year. And he put Warriors on there, maybe next year. That's just one of them. He went after a number of people, Kendrick Perkins, and Perkins even turned around and apologized to him. Nick Wright of Fox Sports. He even went after El Presidente, Dave Portnoy of Barstool Sports, who was wearing the Draymond Suck shirt. and which Draymond came back and said, "Hold that L, sucker." Um, ESPN texting a picture of Draymond Green walking in all black and him retweeting it saying, "Yeah, it was for a funeral." I mean, I love that. Um, so many of them. You're right, but my favorite one was John Morant coming back and saying, "Man, we, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, we own a lot of real estate in their heads, huh?" And Draymond Green coming back and saying, "No, we traded that real estate for real estate in Boston. It was a lot more valuable." And I got to get, this guy's clever as hell and he's entertaining. So you know what? Good for them. They earned it. I can't wait to see how the rest of the summer troll tour continues. So we'll go from there. Well, it's about the halfway point of our show, and that means it's time for another fun edition of NBA Player Or. Montana had a rough week last week. Bringing his record, he's 24 of 35 as far as getting accurate answers here. But I think many of you know how the game is played. But for those newbies, we'll give you a rundown of what we do here with NBA Player Or. I give Montana the names of 5 individuals, and he has to tell me if they are an NBA player or someone from another profession. Could be a rock star, could be an artist, could be somebody from a boy band, But Montana, how good are you with your history of U.S. presidents?
Oh, I'm pretty good at, yeah.
Yeah,
I
well,
think I'm pretty set on that one. Is that what this one is U.S. presidents? Or
no, it's the guys that lost to them.
oh, okay, never mind. Maybe not then. I might get a few. Okay, I think I might get a few.
I think you'll do rather well. There's a couple obvious ones, but I think you do well. Well, how the game is played, we already went and told you this, but if Montana gets an answer correct, you will hear this sound. Victory! Thank you again, Johnny Drama, our unofficial member of the Wall Beyond the Arc podcast. And if Montana gets an answer incorrect, you will hear the sound. Pretty straightforward, right? All right, let's begin. Name number 1. Montana, is this the name of an NBA player or a presidential candidate runner-up? The first name is James Cox. James Cox.
Boy, wow, starting with a tough one. I'm gonna go with runner-up.
Victory! And that was a good choice. Yes, James Cox lost the 1920 presidential election to Warren G. Harding, our 29th president of the United States of America. South Star, Montana. Let's keep it continuous, Sammy Sosa once said. Name number 2, John Brown. John Brown.
I'm gonna go to flip it over and go NBA player.
Victory! It's 2 for 2, folks. John Brown played in the NBA from 1973 to 1980 with the Atlanta Hawks and Utah Jazz. He averaged 7.1 points per game in 406 career games. All right, Montana, 2 for 2. See if you can keep it up. Name number 3. Is this the name of an NBA player or a presidential candidate runner-up? The name is Michael Dukakis. Michael Dukakis.
Wow. I'm gonna go back to runner-up.
Victory! That was a good move.
All right.
I thought that would have been the easiest of the list, but Michael Dukakis lost the 1988 presidential election to George H.W., otherwise known as Herbert Walker Bush. Bush number 41, 41st president of our United States of America. All right. He's on fire, folks. Name number 4. Is this an NBA player or presidential candidate? The name is, presidential runner-up, Kevin Edwards. Kevin Edwards.
I'm going to go with NBA player.
Victory!
4 for 4. Kevin Edwards played in the NBA from 1989 to 2001 with the Miami Heat, New Jersey Nets, Orlando Magic, and the then Vancouver Grizzlies, averaging 10.9 points per game in 604 games. Montana, you've hit 5 for 5 once before. No pressure, but let's get another one. I think we got something queued up if you got that 5 for 5. All right, the fifth and final name. Is this the name of an NBA player or a presidential candidate runner-up? Alton Parker. Alton Parker.
I'm going to go with NBA player.
Oh,
Man.
oh man. Okay, a guy named there's Alton Lister who was an NBA player, but Alton Parker, no relation to Tony Parker or Candace Parker, lost the 1904 presidential election to Theodore Roosevelt, our 26th president of the United States of America. We got the peanut gallery coming in trying to help you out here in Montana. Yes, we can prove that Alton Parker was not an NBA player. Just check basketballreference.com. All right, 4 out of 5. Well, look, Montana, strong showing. That gets you to 28 out of 40 going. Great job. Let's see. Next week we'll get another 5 for 5 going, huh?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, talked a lot about the Warriors and the NBA Finals, and rightfully so. But unfortunately for us NBA fans, the 2021-22 season has come to a close. And man, what a season it was! It was the NBA's 75th anniversary celebration all season long. Number of different storylines, guys changing teams, injuries, a great playoff run. Although there were a lot of blowouts in the playoffs. Montana, what are you going to remember most? It's hard for me to keep my composure when Jay's wife is rooting for you to go 5 for 5, but at least you know you got the support of our Well Beyond the Arc fans. What, Montana, are you going to remember most about the 2021-22 season? The highs, the lows, and just from your perspective, how are you going to remember the season?
Well, as a Lakers fan, I'm going to try to forget it, but the thing that I liked most about this season was throughout the entire season, I didn't think there was a clear-cut person that was going to run away with this. We've seen in the past, throughout several dynasties, or just teams that are like put together in the offseason that have a huge advantage. I didn't see that. The whole season was really competitive. And again, like the Warriors, I definitely thought they could potentially be a team that might, make the finals, but I didn't have them 100% because there was so much talent in the West and there was equal talent in the East. So I think we're finally starting to see a more balanced NBA between the East and the West. Now, of course, the offseason could shake all of that up. We could be back, beginning of next season, and there is a super team. But there was no clear-cut super team this season, and I really, really like that because that can be a little taxing. You hate when your team has to go up against them because it's almost like it's already done, even if it isn't. Like when those Warriors were at their best with Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Curry, you more than likely were not going to beat that team. They were just ridiculous. And I will say there hasn't really been a team like that since then. But especially this season, I just felt like we're in such a balanced NBA era currently with a lot of talented teams, young and, aging teams as well. So I was really happy with, just kind of how the East and the West was more even. I think it's one of the most even seasons I've seen between them, like super competitive all the way through and, lots of talent on both, ends of the spectrum. So I would say that's what I liked the most. And then what I liked the least was obviously the Lakers portion of the season. It was hard to watch. I will admit I stopped watching. I would check some highlights or I'd check scores, but I just couldn't take the way the season was going. And it definitely opened my eyes a little bit as a Lakers fan and made me kind of be like, honestly, if we don't get anything done this season, it might be time to move on. And LeBron leaving might not be an awful thing if he does leave after this season. So for me, it was really not a great season, but it also provided me with some more clarity on what I think they should do going forward. And it might not be keeping LeBron. LeBron, I don't think is holding them back. I mean, he was the one that was helping them compete in some of those games, but I also don't think he was exactly doing them too many favors, especially with how much control he had in the offseason. So yeah, for me, good. I liked how even it was, and I really liked the competitiveness overall for the whole league. And then on the other side, I was really disappointed as a Lakers fan, the most I've ever been. I mean, I was watching them when they had D'Angelo Russell, Julius Randle, Jordan Clarkson, and they were winning like 20 games max, you know, 20 to 25 games max. But you had LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, among other players, and you couldn't even make the play in. So that was tough for me, but definitely more good than bad. And it kind of gave me not watching the Lakers as much, kind of gave me a chance to tune into other teams and tune into other, just overall. So as an NBA fan, this was one of my favorite seasons for the last few seasons. As a Lakers fan, it was not, but looking at it as just a fan of the league, it was insanely competitive from start to finish, and we had some all-time moments this season. I'm not going to say more than we usually have, but we had some great buzzer beaters. We had some awesome. I mean, it was overall, this was one of the most exciting seasons that I've watched in a while.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely an exciting season. I remember at the beginning of the year, a lot of folks were picking the Brooklyn Nets to take on the Lakers in the NBA Finals, and unfortunately, the only way that's going to happen is if you play them on NBA 2K on PlayStation or Xbox, right? You know, I remember it for the NBA 75 anniversary celebration at All-Star Game weekend. All the greats out there. It was a little awkward with some of the video intros, but the guys that were in Cleveland, I thought that was huge. I remember Michael Jordan, everybody not expecting him to show up, but he literally showed up at the last minute. And the ovation he got, and in addition to some of the other big names there during All-Star Weekend, that was pretty cool to see. For me as a Bulls fan, I mean, they've returned to relevancy. They returned to the playoffs, and at the All-Star game weekend, All-Star break, I should say, they were tied for number one at being the top seed in the East, which I was expecting them to sneak in the playoffs, but being a number like an Eastern Conference contender, I mean, I was getting giddy, especially after they added on DeMar DeRozan at great value, considering some of these stars are being paid now. No one expected him to have a career year, which he did. I've become a fan of DeMar DeRozan mostly because he's a Chicago Bull, but just the way that he played and just going about his methodical, old school mid-range game, and the back-to-back game winners that he had against the Wizards on New Year's Eve, or I'm sorry, the Pacers on New Year's Eve and the Wizards on New Year's Day. I mean, I literally was jumping around our condo. You can ask my wife; she thought I was going to hurt myself, and I probably almost did. But just to be that excited as a Bulls fan is something that I'm going to remember about this season. I'm also going to remember them practically peeing down their pant leg in the second half, um, and almost falling out of the playoffs altogether. I'm going to remember one of the closest MVP races in history between Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, take those guys, their individual seasons and place them in other seasons. I think all three of them win in a different year, but the Joker came away with a second straight MVP season. There are some surprises. My Bulls, the Cleveland Cavaliers, almost squeaking into the playoffs, getting into the play-in game, which no one expected. Same with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Same story for them. And the Memphis Grizzlies, I thought folks were going to be good, but I don't think everybody thought that they were going to be that good. And folks on watching us live on YouTube, feel free to throw in your comments about what you remember most and what you liked, what you didn't like about this season as we're going through this. Those were the surprise teams, but then unfortunately, your Lakers were a disappointment. I thought they'd be a lot better. I was curious to see how the Westbrook fit was going to happen, and if Vogel was going to be able to survive there. And obviously, and fortunately for the Lakers fans, that didn't happen. Brooklyn was a disappointment. Ben Simmons and Zion Williamson not playing at all, not a single minute, was a disappointment. Even the Clippers to an extent, and then the New York Knicks. I know our Knicks friends out there, not very happy with how the season came. I mean, they ended up. I mean, they were expecting big things after they made the playoffs, and they were relevant last year for the first time in forever. Not a good year for the Knicks fans. But I think my biggest disappointment, and if my buddy Josh is watching, you might want to put me on mute right now because you're not going to like what I have to say about your Phoenix Suns. I think Phoenix had the best record in the league. at 64-18. They look good on both ends of the floor. They were able to withstand some of the injuries, especially when Chris Paul went out in parts of the season. I really expected the Phoenix Suns to make a run, and even possibly could have been their year for the championship. But unfortunately, I think their window is closed. It's going to be curious to see it's going to be interesting to see what happens with DeAndre Ayton, or what Phoenix does to either add or if they keep some of the pieces. But unfortunately, my biggest disappointment outside of the Bulls was the Phoenix Suns. I'm also going to remember the season for the injuries and how they've impacted both the regular season and the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard didn't play a single game. We already talked about Zion and Ben Simmons. Damian Lillard was out for most of this season. Paul George, Kyrie wasn't injured, but decided to sit out due to the New York City vaccine protocols. COVID protocols, guys missing in and out of the lineups for COVID protocols, and even in the playoffs, the Phillies series that Embiid got hurt, towards the end of the Toronto series, I think impact their next series. The Miami Heat guys getting tweaked up at the wrong time. Maybe they would have made it into the finals out of the East. So a lot of missed opportunities, but the cherry on top, like we've been talking about, most of the show, is the Golden State Warriors and what coming back and returning to prominence. I think at the beginning of the year, folks thought they'd compete, but not necessarily be the winner. But lot of surprises, a lot of disappointments. It's going to be a very interesting offseason. We got the draft coming up on Thursday, but as far as the 2021-22 season, like you said, one of the more exciting seasons. I think the league's just going to continue to get better and better. But that's what I'll remember most about that season. So here's to an even better 22-23 season. And Montana, hopefully my Bulls meet your Lakers in the finals. Here's hoping, huh?
Yep, absolutely. That'd be a good matchup. Let's hope for that. Anything's better than completely missing the play-in game. I don't think I'm going to get over that for a little bit, because that was just – and I will admit, I mean, the Lakers never looked – even just right off the bat when their record wasn't terrible, I was already like, this is going to be a long season. AD can't stay healthy. Westbrook wasn't doing what people thought he was going to do for the Lakers. There's a chance that they might be keeping him. I mean, I think more of a slim chance than anything else. I'd say it's more of a slim chance that they get rid of him as opposed to keep him. I think they will end up keeping him, and who knows? I don't dislike the guy. I still have my Westbrook jersey. Maybe I'll be able to wear it proudly next season. I don't know. No, not crossing my finger. Not thinking that's going to happen. Not holding my breath, but maybe. It could have just been a bad season. It was an awful season. It wasn't just a bad season. And, LeBron was putting up big numbers, but it didn't matter. It was, people are always stat padding this and that. Well, there was really no one else on that team that was doing much. So LeBron had to, stat pad almost every night to even keep them in the games. And then he was injured sometimes. And it was just a mess. But overall, one of the best seasons in a while, pound for pound. It was fun turning on just a random game and watching. There was just so much talent on every single NBA team, except maybe not the Sacramento Kings. But other than that, but no. So it was a fun season, and I'm looking forward to the next season. And I think in the off season with free agency and everything, I think we're going to have some pretty interesting moves that take place before we start back up for the next season.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, we'll talk about one of those moves here in a second. But folks, make sure you turn in next week. Montana's going to be wearing a Sacramento Queens t-shirt, proudly there. So you won't want to miss that. Well, going into the offseason, we might already have one prominent name on the rumor mill, to the surprise of no one, if you ask us. Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets are at an impasse with contract talks. Kyrie's got until June 29th to opt into his $36.5 million player option. Apparently, both sides were trying to work out some sort of extension, but the Nets wanted certainty that he was going to be available and work some incentives to get him to the max number, which is not what Irving was looking for. So now there's rumors that Kyrie could leave. After saying he wouldn't leave KD, he might be on the way out of Brooklyn. Montana, what do you make of the latest Kyrie Irving, I don't know what to call it, saga?
I mean, it is. And I mean, he's been involved in what you could call a saga ever since he left Cleveland. He's been on the negative side of media, both basketball and otherwise, pretty much since he left Cleveland. Not so much with the Celtics. The Nets is kind of when everything crashed down. But I mean, this is what I want. A talented player. I totally think, he's a talent. He's a future Hall of Famer. But I don't think the headache is worth it with him. I don't think he didn't show enough. I know he didn't play a lot of last season because of the New York mandate, but when he did, he didn't show me enough to show me that it would be worth it. Like there wasn't enough that I saw that would make me think that even if it was a headache, the talent would make up for it. I didn't see that this season. Personally, I don't want him coming anywhere close to my Lakers. I don't think he would help them. I'm not saying Westbrook is a better option, but I don't think the good thing about Westbrook is he's not out there in the media as much as Kyrie Irving is, but I definitely would rather. I'm going to say it right now. I would rather keep Russell Westbrook than have Kyrie Irving at this point, and that's a big statement because I've talked so much smack on Westbrook since we started this show. So I've maybe not mentioned him every week, but I've mentioned him a good amount of the episodes in some point. So I'm not a huge Westbrook guy, but I'm an even less big Kyrie Irving guy. I think he's a talent. I think his handles are unmatched. I think he's one of the most talented guards we've ever seen, but I also think he's more of a headache than he's worth now. I saw there's Clippers, Lakers, there's a whole Knicks, there's a whole list of teams that could potentially be having him on their roster, next season. But I just, I don't see him staying in Brooklyn. I think when Kyrie doesn't want to play, trust me, he's not going to play. If he's upset about something, he will tell you, he will tell he'll tell everybody, and it's not always in the most graceful way. But I do think that we will see him. I think he's going to go to the Knicks. I think we might see him sticking around on that side of the country and just staying, going to the Knicks. I could see the Knicks as a possibility. I get the whole teaming up LeBron and Kyrie again, but Kyrie wanted out. He wanted his own team. He wanted his own thing. What would make us think this is gonna work this time? I don't. It worked. They got a championship, but it didn't work much beyond that. So I don't want excuse me. Well, thinking about Westbrook, I guess still. I don't want Irving personally, but I would like to see him on another roster to see what that looks like. I wouldn't mind seeing him on the Clippers, obviously Lakers Clippers rivalry, but I wouldn't mind that. I just really don't want him on the Lakers because I think he's too much of a headache. He's not worth the headache he gives organizations, fans. Just he's a headache. He's a talented player, but I don't think he's worth the headache at this point for a lot of programs probably.
Yeah, Kyrie Irving, what unbelievable talent, right? He chose not to he chose to sit out some games here because of the New York City vaccine mandate. It's what he believed in. At least I respect him for standing up for what he believes in. Not going to get all into the politics around that, but he raised some eyebrows when he wanted to be traded from Cleveland. Him and LeBron had led Cleveland to that city their first championship in 52 years, I think, something along those lines. And they could have had a chance to win more championships. You got a 1-2 punch of Kyrie Irving and LeBron James. It obviously worked once. Why couldn't it work well again? And they would just continue to add pieces. The guys would want to play with them. But when he wanted, that it definitely took LeBron James by surprise when Kyrie Irving said he wanted out. He ended up getting traded to the Celtics, and that was a superstar that then president of basketball ops for the Celtics, Danny Ainge, wanted, and that I thought that was going to take the Celtics to the next level, but that didn't end up working out. After 2 years, Kyrie Irving moves on to Brooklyn and teams up with Kevin Durant, and here again very quickly, all of a sudden he's out the door. Ultimately, my prediction is I think they're going to find a way to get something done with the Nets. I don't know if Kyrie can take that much of a PR hit again. I think he wants to play with KD. They're going to come to some sort of agreement. At the very least, I think he's going to opt into that 36.5 player option and decide to walk on his own after next season. At the very least. If he does leave, the Knicks are interesting. I don't think he's going to the Lakers. I don't think Brooklyn's going to want to take back Russell Westbrook. I'd also, at least the one thing you could say about Westbrook is at least he will be there. He is dependable. He is durable. He plays hard. It doesn't always turn out very well, but at least you can count on him to show up and play hard. But we'll see. I mean, this is just the first rumor. This very well could go away very, very quickly, or it might be the story of the offseason. Who knows? But it will be a very interesting offseason, starting with the NBA draft this Thursday. Orlando Magic with the #1 pick, followed by Oklahoma City Thunder, and then the Houston Rockets, and then free agency opens. Zach LaVine of my Bulls, I'm a little worried that he might leave. I know the Lakers are interested in him. I don't know how they fit him in unless the Lakers pull a Golden State Warriors and just unload the checkbook there. But it'll be an interesting off season, and I can't wait for the quote unquote NBA hot stove. So we'll see what happens there. Well, we're coming close to an end of our 10th episode here at Well Beyond the Arc, but these aren't the only projects that we work on. Montana also has another podcast. No, he doesn't cheat on me. He's had other podcasts before this. Montana, you want to tell us a little bit about your other podcasts that you have going?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's called the Connor and Heffernan Show, and it's just, all sports. We have been taking a bit of a break, but we're planning on getting back into it. I was unfortunately sick when we were supposed to record last week, so hopefully we get back on it this week or next week. But you can find us on Spotify, Podbean, or Amazon Music at the Connor and Heffernan Show.
I also have my own website. It's a blog website called the Sports Page Blog. You can find my blog at thesportspageblog.com. Post a few entries a month about a number of different sports topics, and they are random topics. And a few days ago, I released my latest blog talking about 5 things that I learned about the Golden State Warriors after their Game 6 win, clinching the 22 NBA Finals. Might have some trivia coming on the site soon, so be sure to check that out. And very excited about that. Be glad to have you guys there. Also, don't forget, again, to subscribe to the Yankee and the Brit channel here on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify. In addition to Well Beyond the Arc, there are a number of great shows that you won't want to miss. Be sure to check them out. Like I said before, covering MMA, NFL, college football is coming up. I also got Real Talk with Jay, a number of different shows that are just awesome that you won't want to miss. So check those out. I'll close on a couple sad notes, one sarcastically sad and one serious. Boban Marjanovic traded away from the Dallas Mavericks to the Houston Rockets. He's first traded away from best friend Tobias Harris. Now he's traded away from new best friend Luka Doncic. Hopefully, Boban, you can make some new friends in Houston. And then, well, maybe they'll buy you out and you can go back to Toby and or Luka. But on a serious note, thoughts and prayers with the family of former NBA player Caleb Swanigan, also a former fellow Purdue Boilermaker, passed away unexpectedly today at the age of 25. Rest in peace, Caleb. Thoughts and prayers out to your family. We'll see you guys next week. Until then, so long.